Tech by Tips.
Hello and welcome to another Tech by Tips video once again. I'm glad I see you here. Today we're going to be talking about the application named Lidarr. If you're a music fan, you're going to love this one because it's an application that finds your music on the internet and organizes it for you. So let's get to it. Welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be talking about Lidarr. This is an open source application that behaves just like Sonar and Radar does, but it is specifically for music, to manage a music collection, accessing Usenet and torrents, and it can monitor feeds and grab and sort and rename the files so that you have a collection of music of your favorite artists always in the best conditions. This is just like the other ones, available for Linux, Windows, Mac, Raspberry Pi, Docker, etc. We're gonna be installing it in Docker, and it has a big community of supporters and contributors. So yes, let's get to it. First thing, we have here our previously set up applications, Radar, Sonar, and our two downloaders. So now we're gonna go into the registry and we're gonna look for Lidarr. And as usual, we're gonna get the Linux server Lidarr one. So you right click, select download this image, and we wait a little bit for it to read from Docker Hub and give us the drop down to select the version that we want to download for our system. In here we leave it as latest and we click select, and now it'll begin downloading the application. As usual, as one of the R's, it'll probably be around 300 megs or less. So let's give it some time and check when it's done. Check it back. Alright, it has downloaded. Let's clear this notification up, and as we can see, Lidarr is 269 megs. So we can select it, click launch, leave this as it is, click next, rename this to Lidarr, and enable resource limitation, enable auto restart as usual, so it doesn't take all the resources of our host, and so that if it for some reason stops, it auto restarts. Then we're going to click the advanced settings button, and in here as usual we're going to go and add 3 options. So we click the add button 3 times, we put the process user ID 1026, group ID, which is usually 100, and a TZ, which is time zone, and in my case America, New York, East Coast. We click save and we proceed to the next. Here the container is going to be listening on port 8686, but we've already used 8080, 8081, 8082 and 8083, so we're going to use now 8084 for Lidarr. And we click the next button. In here we're going to specify that inside our Docker configs we need a new folder for Lidarr, so we create it and we pick it. Next thing we need to do, we need to add another folder that's going to be in our completed, and we have Lidarr. We select that. And lastly, another thing that we need to add is another folder that contains our actual music. We did not create that folder before. We only have anime, books, comics, movies and TV, so let's create that. In this case we're gonna go here and say music. So now we have another one for music. We select it, and then we specify that in our container the first one is going to point to the config, the second one is going to point to the downloads, and the third one is going to point to our music. So we click next and we validate the information is correct, and we leave that checked, and we click done, and it will start immediately creating that container for us. We see it popping up, we select it, click details and then log, and we monitor the logs until we see that it has completely set itself up and it's actually listening on a specific port. So we can see we're down to the very end, it's still working, and now we see listening on 8686, which is what we expected to see. We can close out of here, and then in our browser we can navigate to the IP of our NAS and port 8084, and we will see Lidarr with its usual interface by now, because we've seen a very similar interface with Sonar and with Lidarr before. So now that we are done with that part, we go into the settings and we start making changes here in our system. Here we want to specify our root folder. We click on the plus sign here and we are going to say that our root folder is going to be named music, and we're going to look for the music folder that we gave to the container. And we want to monitor all the albums, we want to monitor all the new ones that get added. The quality profile, you can specify here if you want any quality, if you want only lossless, if you want standard, for example. You can leave it as any and it'll pick any of those. Usually lossless means FLAC files, so those are not the standard MP3 files, for example, and those are usually higher quality. And standard usually refers to the MP3 ones. And here in the metadata we just leave it like it is, and we don't really need to do much more here, so we save. And now we have our root folder here. And we want to rename the tracks, so we select that, and then we need to see how we're going to rename. We have here the illegal characters being replaced, and then the colon is going to be replaced with dashes. So then when we look at the sample of how it would look like, it'll be the album title with the year, and then the artist name, the album title, the number of the track, and the track title. Yeah, I think that's good. I think we don't need to do much here. That looks accurate. So we save the changes, and then we go into the profiles. In the profiles here, as usual, I don't make any changes. I leave them as they are. Lossless, any, and standard, that tells you what we're looking for. In lossless, we have FLAC, waveback, APE as the files that it's going to look for. And if you say standard, then you're looking for your typical like MP3s, VBRs, etc. And yep, nothing else that we should need to do on this part. So if we go into the quality here, you can again make changes on the based on the size for the different categories. I'm not gonna change anything here, I never do. If we go into the custom formats, I don't use that either. You can read on the documentation if you want to use that, but it's really not necessary. And the indexers, this is going to be an important part. Remember, we're going to be using another application named Prowler to automatically keep this updated. So we're not going to touch it right now. We're going to come back to this later. But we go into the download clients, and here we will set it up. We click the plus button, we select SAB and ZBD, we go back into Sonar, and we copy those settings that we already set up there. So the name, SAB and ZBD, the IP of our NAS, the port, which is 8081, the API key, we put it in here, the username for SAB and ZBD, and the password. The category in this case is going to be music, so we don't change that. The priority, we make it force for both, and that'll be basically everything we need for SAB. So let's test it. It's working, we save it. Now we click the plus again, we're looking for torrents, and we're looking for qubit torrent. So we select qubit torrent, and we go back into Sonar and copy the configuration that we set up here. We get the IP address of our NAS, we get the port 8080, which is what we gave to it, our username and password we also provided here. The category, we're gonna leave the name of the application, and then in the initial state we'll say for start, and this is not selected, nothing is changed here, and remove completed stays checked. We test it, it's working, we save it. So that looks good. The next thing that we need to do is we need to do the remote mapping. Once again, Our downloaders have one folder path, but inside our Lidarr container is a different one, so we need to fix that. We're going to click on the plus here, we select our IP, the remote path is downloads Lidarr, and locally it's downloads for Lidarr. So we click save, and there's nothing else to change because it automatically saves that, so we are good. If we go into the import list, there's really nothing to do here. If you want to import from Last.fm or stuff like that, you can use it. I normally don't use it. In Connect, it's for the notifications, but there's something interesting here that we can actually do. There is a plugin that you can use to convert FLAC files into MP3 files if you care about that. That's a script, it's a shell script that you download, and you can easily find that out in GitHub. It's simple because we just have to make some changes to the Docker container so that it can access that information. Basically, we need to put this flag, environment flag, into our container, and then it's a lot easier to set up. So let's do that. First thing we're going to do is make sure everything's saved. Okay, so now we can go back into the NAS. Let's stop Lidarr for a second, and then here, once it's done, we are going to select it, and then we click edit, and then we go into the advanced settings, and here we have to add an extra environment flag that is going to be named Docker mods, and in here we're going to put Linux server /mods and then Lidarr -flag2 mp3. So we're adding a modification to the Docker container that is from another repository that they have, and that's specifically Lidarr -flag2 mp3. And then with that we save this, and we save this. And now if we click on details, we should see that new flag here. Okay, so now that we have that, then we can restart Lidarr. We need to wait for this to restart again. So let's give it a little bit of time until it restarts. Alright, it's back up, and now we can go into the connections here, and we here select a custom script. In here we're gonna name it flag2mp3, and basically you have many options where you can trigger the script, but I usually prefer to just run it when I'm importing a release or upgrading. So I'm just gonna select those two for now, and then here in the path we have to specify the location of that script. So it should be in the user, local, binaries, and then we should see flag2 mp3 shell, flag2 mp3 shell. So we select that. Okay, so user local binaries, flag2 mp3 shell. So now we can save this, and we have our conversion from flag to mp3. That should give us mp3s in the case that we care about mp3s and we cannot find them, so we get it from the lossless version and we convert it to mp3, which is easier to use than after that. We continue now with the metadata because there's nothing to save here. And in metadata, if you use Kodi again, you can have it set up so that it creates the metadata files. Under tags, I do not use that either, so we're going to skip it for now. You can always search what you can do with this in the documentation. In general, we do have things. In security, let's do the forms logging. Let's use Lidarr. And remember again that general, in settings, general security is where you have the API key. And that's basically it for here. We can save the changes. And in the UI, there's nothing that we really need to do. So that's basically it. The main configuration is done. The only thing that is pending is the indexers that we're going to do with Prowler, and that's going to be in the next section. Alright, now that we have set up Prowler, we can come back into Lidarr and we'll see that our indexers have been populated from Prowler, so we can see a bunch of them, and it all says Prowler on parentheses, letting us know that these indexers are coming from Prowler. So we should be ready to start using our application. So we can go back into our library. It's empty, we don't have anything. So what we do here normally is we would go here into the search bar and we would look for an artist that we like. Let's say, I don't know, for example, something like Creed. And then when we search, it'll give us a bunch of results. Sometimes the results are an album. So we're looking for the band or the group. Here it says it's a group, so this is the one that we want, so we select it. And then we say, okay, confirm that it's going to download everything to our music folder. And we want all the albums for this artist. And we want to monitor all of the albums as soon as we add the artist. And for the quality profile, we say any. If you are, picky, you can say lossless, which will give you like FLAC and very high quality, or standard if you just want like MP3s and lower quality. For me, any is fine because we have configured the Linux mod that converts FLAC files to MP3 files, so anyone is good. So now we just make sure we select here where it says start search for missing albums, so that'll trigger it to start looking for the albums immediately after we add the artist, and we say add the artist. And now if we go back into the library, we'll see that it is being populated. If we go into here, we see that it's pulling data from different sources, and now it knows that there's 4 albums up to this point, and it's grabbed information for the artist, etc., and it's gonna keep slowly populating data, like you see here, rating and stuff like that. So let's just give it time because it's working on that, and eventually we'll see a thumbnail here that represents that artist. It just takes a little bit of time to do that. And okay, it looks like it completed pulling the information, and there we go. We see the banner here. Maybe we'll see the thumbnail here. There we go, it came. So now everything is here, all the information is here. So now it should in theory start looking for albums. So we can see here it is looking for the albums in the different indexers that we have. So if it finds anything, yeah, you go processing release means that it found something. So now we just need to see if it dropped something into 7CBD or qBittorrent. And as we can see here, it found 2 torrents that correspond to this artist or this band. Oh, there's a third one. So it found three torrents, and it immediately added them into qBittorrent. So now it's just a matter of waiting for this to download. It takes a little bit of time, so let's just give it time. Oh, there's a 4th one, so that's looking good. And here we go, something started downloading. So that's how you download with Lidarr. Let's just give it some time for it to download something completely, and then we'll see if it processes the files automatically and organizes them, etc. Okay, something occurred to me while looking at this. We can see that these downloads are kind of slow. Right now there's not a lot of people sharing. So like this one goes up and then suddenly goes down to nothing. So one thing you can do within Lidarr, for example, let's say Human Clay. This album is not downloading at all. So what you can do is you can come into Lidarr, you can go into activity, and here you'll find Human Clay, and then there's a little X here. If you click this X, it's going to remove it from the download queue, and you're going to get a prompt saying, do you want to block this release so that it doesn't try to download it again, because it honestly wasn't downloading. So we can block that specific release, and then it'll pick another version to try to download. So when we do this and we go back into our client, we see that it went away, and now Lidarr should start again a new search for that album, and it says that it found again something. It's not in 7ZBD, so it added a new one into the torrents, and we can wait a little bit to see if it actually starts downloading or not. As you can see, this other one is having a boost again. So that's one thing you can do. If you see that one of the turns is not downloading, you can just remove it and blacklist it so that it tries with a new one. Like in this case, the new one that we added, which was Human Clay, it's actually downloading now. Okay, as we can see here, it has completed downloading one of those and it says moving. So it should be putting that into the appropriate category, which is into our media music. Downloads completed Lidarr. So here it is. It's moving all the files here. They're good quality files, they're FLAC files. So once it's done moving that and it's like ready, then we'll see, okay, it's seeding, so it's done moving. So now Lidarr should become aware. As you can see, this bar went up and then it'll start importing. As you see here, the symbol changed to importing and it says downloaded, waiting to import. And then it'll start executing the importation of the files into our destination, our final destination for this, which will be in the media music. It'll create a folder in here for that artist. It's still waiting, so it hasn't started, but it'll create a folder here for Creed, and then it'll put that album inside that. Let's just give it time for it to finally start processing it, and then we'll see that in action. Okay, the status, if we go and hover here, it says it's actually importing right now, so it should create the folder here soon. Oh, I'm in the wrong, in music, not movies. There we go, it has the folder Creed and it has the folder for My Own Prison, and as you can see, it is importing the FLAC files, but we're using the Linux server mod that converts the FLAC files into MP3s, so that's why you see some MP3s, and you'll slowly see that these FLAC files turn into MP3s. So we currently refresh and you see another MP3, and it'll slowly keep on converting all of the FLAC files into MP3 until we end up with a full library of MP3 files here. This takes a little bit of time, so you can just wait. Let's just give it a little bit of time, come back when that's done. Okay, we're down to the last 3 files here, and the other ones are not downloading, but I don't really care about those. This was just for the sake of showing in the video how you do this, so I'm going to delete all of this. Let's just wait for it to finish importing the files and processing them into MP3s. Alright, we're down to the last FLAC file, which is great. As you can see, this is a pretty fast process. It doesn't take long time, and you can find them in any quality possible. It could be FLAC files, it could be MP3s, and at the end, if you have FLAC files, you will still end up with the MP3s. As you can see, everything is now MP3s, and if we go back into Lidarr and we refresh, it should soon disappear from here, the My Own Prison album, because it should be done importing in a little bit. So let's just give it a little bit of time. And there we go, it went away, it was imported. So if we go back into our artists here, we'll see that there's a bar marking progress. If we see here, we should see that one of these will soon start showing up in the status like it has those files. So you see importing the 10 tracks. So now we just wait and we'll see, there we go, boom, 10 out of 10. So it knows that My Own Prison is completed and it has it in our system. And that's how you use Lidarr, that's how you configure it, etc. Hope you liked it. If you enjoyed this content, like the video, subscribe to the channel, support us, and suggest any topics that you would like us to cover in the comments below. Thank you very much. See you on the next time.